team! I'm going to be breaking down downward facing dog for you in the best way I know how. Now, one thing I always like to say about yoga is that it is a practice of self-discovery. There are so many ways to modify, so many ways to move, and I'm just going to give you the tips that I've picked up in my life as a teacher and as a student, and hopefully it gives you a little bit more confidence with a downward facing dog. But I do not know everything. Yoga is a lifelong practice, and I am still practicing myself. But let's get started. Also, I'd like to give a little shout out to my little doggie, Bella, who will be joining us for this downward facing dog edition. So, one thing that I was taught, to determine the base, the correct length of your downward facing dog, go into an active child's pose. It's nice to have a block for an active child's pose, but you certainly don't need it. Knees as wide as mat, big toes together to touch, reaching the arms forwards. You'll take your forehead to the block, or if you don't have a block, just start in a normal child's pose, forehead to the floor. You'll start to push your hands into the mat so that the wrists and arms lift off as if there was something hot underneath the wrists. And from pushing into your arms so much, you'll feel the side body lengthen, the hips sink a little lower, shoulders staying away from ears. And for a few of us, that will mean the forehead lifts off the floor. Now, this is where the block can be nice to support the head, but as I said, it's not necessary. Keep reaching the fingertips forward, getting as long as you can in the side body. A nice active child's pose, all 10 fingers spreading, hips sinking, so your body's being pulled in 2 different directions. Keeping the hands and feet exactly where they are, you'll start to come forward, pushing into the hands, tuck the toes, lift the hips, downward facing dog. So that's one way I was taught to find the correct length in your downward facing dog. Then when you're in downward facing dog, you can play with a few different things. You can play with coming up onto the tippy toes, bending the knees, lifting the hips, and trying to sink the heels back down to the ground. You can notice that your head is between your arms so that your ears are in line with your arms, and your shoulders are coming down the back, arms externally rotating. So a good cue that I've been taught for feeling that the arms are externally rotating is like you were trying to open 2 jars in the opposite direction. So you're trying to open the jars away from each other, and you have that action with your hands, and that externally rotates them. So obviously they're not like this, but it's opening the shoulders, creating space. You want to have a nice distance between the hands, in line with either your shoulders, or if you have a bit of a carrying angle, your arms will be going a little bit more out to the side. But basically you can kind of play around with the placement of your hands to what feels more comfortable in line with your shoulders. Coming back to downward facing dog. So, lift the heels, lift the hips. See if you can keep as much height as you can while you sink the heels back down. You should feel a nice stretch along the back of the legs. Shoulders down the back, squeezing the jars open to externally rotate. Arms should be working. And then you can also play with rounding between the shoulders and sinking the heart a little bit closer, just to see how much mobility and movement you have in this pose. And then see if you can find somewhere in the middle where the ears line up with the arms, shoulders away from the ears. Another great cue is to try and turn the inside of your thighs to the back of the room. Try and ground the heels. Pretend like someone was coming and reaching through the thighs and pulling you back as if you were trying to stand into your legs. Although the arms are doing a lot here, don't forget that you have the legs to help the muscle and help support this pose. Look forward to your hands and see that each finger is spread equally like a piece of pie. Check to see that your wrist creases are in line with the top of the mat. So the creases that are created in your wrists when your hand is at an angle, in line with the top line of your mat. The next thing to look for is the 2 pointer fingers are lined up with each other, and that all of the hands are equally pushing into the mat with a little bit more emphasis on the thumbs and the pointer fingers, pushing strongly into the mat, opening your jars, activating the arms. You'll take a deep breath in. Feel all these cues in your body. A common assist I give when I'm in a class with students is to come around and just ground their hands into the floor to make sure the fingers aren't gripping, to make sure they're not doing some funky variation or sometimes I'll even come around and open up the fingers and then nicely ground the hands down. Thanks so much for tuning in to my quick tips on downward facing dog. Have a good day.